Hey everyone, welcome to another short Unity tutorial snippet from me, Mike. I'm here with Dylan.
Hi.
And this episode, we're going to show you just a real quick look at how you add custom property inspectors in Unity. I'm going to be using a guy that we've been using for a couple of videos now. We call him Cop Guy. This little dirty, hairy sprite. And you can get him at opengameart/content/3dhero. Thank you to the author, Taka, because we've been, using him quite a bit. We like him. Know that if you come here to grab this stuff, that, he is not free. He is licensed under a attribution license and a GPL 3.0 some reserve. Check all that before you actually build a game with him. Wouldn't hurt to even drop the author a line and let them know you're doing it if you use anything from OpenGameArt. But it's a great site to grab some free art, especially to prototype with for nothing else. Okay, let's dive into Unity. Create a new project. Let's call this one Inspector Demo. And as always, default for 2.3. Okay, Unity wants to update, and I haven't done it yet because I'm having enough demo gremlins without the update. But as always, we got one thing we have to fix. Maybe the update will fix this.
Oh, and make it use cornflower blue.
Yes, I'm gonna make it an issue and then spend all my votes on the issue board for the default camera color.
I think it's really only an issue for people who come to Unity from certain other platforms.
The only other platforms, the only ones that mattered.
The only.
Okay, and then save it. Make sure you save right off the bat anytime you make a new project. Okay, so we're gonna use that guy. But we've gone ahead and made him a package. Did I? Wait, hold on. Import package is what I meant to do. There he is. Cop Guy. Import him on over. We have another video up if you want to see us building this. And drop him on there. Oops, not you. Cop Guy. I want the prefab. Okay, yes, he's got all his animations and everything. We're not going to get into that in this video. Check him out. You know, we've set some colliders and stuff to play with him on. Okay. Let me make sure that I turn off his gravity for this demo. So, and let's take our camera. Oh, I don't think our Cop Guy is centered. He is not. All set. And we run. He's got a little idle. He can walk around. Okay. And you can see how we did that in our sprite sheet intro video. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to give him a new script. Or we're going to add a script. Excuse me. I'm going to create a script here. And we're just going to call these character stats. Because, let's say this will be something we use for character stats through all the characters in the entire game. Okay? Everything's going to get a copy of character stats. So let's just drop that on Cop Guy right now. So we get a copy. We're going to open that up. Now, this is not the demo that's going to provide the use case for why you would want to do this. We're just showing you how you would go about it. You're probably gonna look at this and be like, this is really basic, guys. I need know that I would do this for what you're doing.
Yeah, your default inspector is going to give you float, int, string, vector, even down to things like enums. But if you wanted to give
and colors and stuff like that are supported, so
I mean, pretty much anything you could want, but if you wanted to, for example, have a list of strings and limit it by some other value in your project, then you might have a reason to do this.
I know what you're asking yourself, Dylan.
What am I asking
You're
myself?
asking yourself, did he fire 4 bullets or 5?
I wasn't asking that. I'm assuming we haven't fired any
Have you not seen any Dirty Harry movie?
No, I have not.
That's like the setup.
I know.
Do you feel lucky, Punk?
I know it's the setup.
Okay.
I understand the concept. I understand the abstract concept of Dirty Harry.
Okay. Dirty Harry.
Implementation, I'm
we
a
have
little
Dirty
unclear
Larry.
on.
So Dirty Larry. Dirty Larry just has another clip. So it doesn't matter. You're not lucky. He just has another clip. He just reloads. Active reloading. Dirty Harry has active reload, or Dirty Larry has active reloading. All right.
It's a feature on the box, like a bullet point.
Let's go ahead and make a folder called Editor. And the name Editor is special. So the name Editor is what is going to enable us to override the Unity editor. I know, it's hard to remember.
It's a magic string.
It is a magic string, though. Yeah, so depending on your background in development, you may not like the magic string aspect of what you're about to see. Well, that's the way it is in Unity. Accept it and move on. So in the editor, I've made a character stats inspector. So I gave us a script for inspecting character stats. And you can see character stats is on right now, by the way. There's his character stats. So let's take a look at character stats inspector. And I'm going to bring up my solution real quick. Because it's important to see that character stats is in one assembly. And character stats inspector is in another assembly. This one is in a dash editor assembly, and this one is not. That is what happens when you create the editor folder in Unity.
Yeah, so in that sense, it makes sense that you're adding this extra, magic string there because it's shuffling files around before it even gets to your code.
Correct. And the really important takeaway here is that the editor scripts can access anything in the runtime assembly, but the runtime assembly is not going to be able to access the editor scripts. These exist only in context of the Unity editor and will not ship with your game. All right. So in our custom inspector here, we need to add another using for the Unity editor. And that's going to bring in a namespace that's going to give us all of the methods and classes and things like that we're going to use here in a moment. And I'm going to change the class to editor. That makes this an editor. I think is there an editor window? There's also an editor window, which I believe is for pop-up windows. This editor, we're making a stats inspector in the inspector window for that. We need to add a decorator to this guy. So he is a custom editor for the type of character stats. Okay. So that tells Unity that this class handles editing in the window over here whenever that window comes up. It's not doing anything at the moment, though.
Yeah, and again, it kind of seems redundant that you have the decorator and the editor folder, but they're doing two different things.
Right. The folder's driving the assemblies, the decorator's kind of wiring up the classes.
Yeah.
Does seem like you should be able to know from one to the other, but that's not the way. Hey, we're not the guys who made Unity.
Yeah.
So, the first thing I'm going to add here is an onEnable method. You don't have to do this step, but it'll help you out. So, you can also tell how old school I am. My Python days of underscore for private variables. So, there is a variable called target that gets set to your editor in the runtime of the script. And it's just an object, okay? So it's just Unity's object class.
onEnable seems a lot like onStart or onWake, where you're making all your references, you're saving all your data objects and things like that you're going to use later when this thing actually executes.
Exactly. So this thing is firing when this window comes up. So it's off, and then enable fired, right? Because it was there to be drawn. In fact, we could even go ahead and just clear that. Might not hurt. Since this is an editor script, we can be a little bit more liberal with our logging here, because it's not going to be at runtime, things we have to worry about later. So, it's enabled. I'm off on the main character. It's enabled again. So anytime that that thing pops up in the dialog, that's going to be called. Alright. The next one I'm going to do, now this is going to be new to you if you're new to C#, is an override method. And I'm going to override the onInspector GUI method. Visual Studio did a lot of wizardry autocomplete on me right now there for you. So I'll zoom in a little bit more. The call to base. Base in C# is the class we inherited from. So in this instance, it calls the base editor. So even though I've overridden onInspector GUI, which handles drawing for the property bin over here, nothing has happened yet. Okay? If I just want to add a button to that box, that when I click this button, reset some objects to default state, okay? I could just simply add the button here. And the button will be in Editor, GUI, Layout. So if you're familiar with GUI layout, I'm sorry, did I already start wrong on that one?
I think it was.
I think I went to GUI layout button.
Yeah, GUI
which
layout.
highlights exactly where I was going with this.
Yeah.
Okay? This is the same GUI system that you can use in your game. The editor GUI layout and editor GUI and editor versions of all of these is a subclass from the GUI classes. So it's adding to that. You can do a little more. Actually, I guess it's not. Somebody explained to me as it was subclassing it, but if I was subclassing it, then I would have an editor GUI layout button. So strike that from the record. But you can freely mix and match them, where editor GUI layout is just filling in some more things that you'd want to do in the editor layout that you can't do at runtime. Okay? So this here, I've got my button on, reset, and my component updated, and you see my button reset. Of course, it's not doing anything, so let's just go ahead and say if reset stats.health equals 1. I think that's what I had it set to. And stats.bullet equals 3. So, let me change this to 4. And change this to a ton of bullets. And then I hit reset. And my cursor was selected on that. That's why I didn't reset until I moved away. But there it got reset. Kind of. Put a pin in that. We'll come back to that later. It's not really saving it just yet. But that's adding to. If you want to replace completely, then don't have the base call. Okay? So if I take out the base call, you can see all I have is a reset button now. I have no access to manipulate anything else. You can also put this down below and have your reset button on the top and then the default render. And you can take advantage of this with your own editors as well, by subclassing your own base class editors and then adding to properties and things like that. Okay, so we started replacing, we've got a reset button there as well, but if we're overriding for whatever reason, like I said, this is not the best example for why you would do this. This is just simply how you would do this. I'm going to go ahead and do an editor layout in vertical. So this editor layout stuff basically gives you a grouping, and then every control rendered from here on out will be vertically stacked. So if I add a GUI layout label, then it will just stack vertically. There. And there's also an editor GUI layout for horizontal, which is generally what you're going to do. So then we're going to have a GUI layout label health. And let's just say for health, I want to be a little fancy. So let's make it a GUI layout slider. I want to make it an editor GUI layout slider, where the value going in is, of course, going to be our current value stats, health. The left value, the min value, will be 0. Again, no health. And the right value, let's say we put 10. And then, of course, we have to end our horizontal layout, so it makes a little snap there. And now we have a health with a slider. Because it's an editor version, you get the actual number you can type in still. And basically, quickly repeat this. For...
It doesn't like the end.
It doesn't like the end. But I'm not going to make it a... let's do an int field for it. And so that it likes that. And now, of course, we get the default render behavior. Notice that they're not lined up, so it's not really a table. If you need to do that, you can set in the parameters, the additional parameters here, height and width type stuff, and do some screen calculations and that kind of stuff to better enhance your layout. Now, first of all, if this is the first time you've seen this kind of work, if you're not familiar with the GUI system, it's a little magic, freaky,
yeah,
a little uncomfortable, let's say, for other developers, depending on what your background is, in that this slider is drawing the field and returning any new values that was set into it. The button is returning true if the button was clicked.
How does it wire it up? I don't know.
It's magic. It's Unity freaking magic. UFM. So, you're just gonna have to accept it. If that's bothering you, I totally will have a beer with you at the bar, and we will go off on that quite longer than is probably acceptable, but that's the world that we're in. One thing I want to call out, though, that's a very simple mistake, and there's a problem with the script, is that these changes are not being persisted to disk. Okay, they are just being changed in the editor. If I was to make a whole bunch of changes, close Unity and reopen Unity, I may lose some of those changes. If I was using this edit inspector on a prefab, which you can completely use him on a prefab. So if I was to right-click him, not right-click him. Let's just take him down, update his prefab, click on his prefab. He still has these value settings. And I come back to the live one, and then I can go back to the prefab. And they look like they're setting, right? But they're just kind of instanced in the editor setting, okay? You need to tell Unity that things changed and save it to disk. So you do that with some more UFM, with the GUI changed value. And if any of these editor GUIs actually returned a new value, or the button got clicked, or anything happened up here, that guy's true. So at the point where he's true, then what you want to do is use the editor utility. Set dirty. And do that on the object that you're editing for. This tells Unity this object is dirty and please persist it and save it to disk. And now when we're going to save by scene. Actually, I didn't check this before to make sure this didn't work, but watch, I don't have an asterisk. Now I have an asterisk. The scene has some save changes. If I comment that out, I don't know if it'll actually... No. You can see I don't have a star going up when I change it, meaning that Unity doesn't know if there's changes to be saved. So I can just close this and be screwed.
I guess the idea behind that is you may have settings that you may have something going on in your editor, some internal field that doesn't necessarily change something that will be written to disk immediately.
Correct. And I also use it in tiled to where, in utiled, where if you change the object layer's opacity, I change all the children, and I need to know that if a value actually changed to check that script before I go off and change a whole bunch of children and do a very expensive operation if nothing actually changed in the editor. Because, you know, in this UFM world, it's not really telling, there's no event wired up here
that
to
says
say
something changed.
Something changed and handle the change. So that's the way that you do that. But that wraps up the basics of creating custom property inspectors, and you can have buttons and you can start getting this namespace in these editor scripts and really customize Unity in a lot of ways. We've just scratched the beginning of the surface of what's possible. So I hope that you spend some time playing with this and diving deeper, because it can really make your game creation go a whole lot faster when you have editors designed for your game. So, thank you everyone for watching.